An appalling Palm Sunday. So I was thinking about Palm Sunday and how the word palm, is very similar to the word pull. Is it Palm Sunday? Is that what it is? Well, that's the thing. See, demons would like to think, and Paul would like to think, that it was about him. But it's not about him. Paul is appalling. You might think I'm appalling. I might think you're appalling. Who's Paul then? Who's Paul? Well, I'll tell you what, Paul is a fraud. When I say Paul, I'm talking about Paul who wrote the epistles. You know, he wrote the letters. Yeah, that guy. You see, I used to live in a city called Brighton, and I knew a guy there called Patrick. My understanding is that he is Paul, born again. I can tell you, the only thing he likes is cocaine, weed, and shagging, having lots of sex, and partying. Yeah, that's Paul. So, people want to celebrate Palm Sunday. I mean, obviously it's spelled P-A-L-M, but, look at the word appalling, or appall. Yeah, how do you spell that? There's no U in appall, is there? Almost sounds like the word apple. 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 Appalling. Palm Sunday. Yeah? A Palm Sunday. A Palm Sunday. You know what a palm tree is? Yeah? It's a tree. Trees are interesting, aren't they? Yeah. Trees. I mean, that's the thing. Most people find me to be appalling. I'm not Paul. I'm God. But the demons will say, he's appalling. He must be Paul. Therefore, let's all worship Paul instead. It's very interesting because, I listened to the cult from China that call themselves the Church of Almighty God. They really don't like Paul. They have a lot to say about Paul. And obviously, there's that woman who claims to be the second coming of Jesus Christ called Yang Xiangbin, and she's written loads of books, which are called The Word Appears in the Flesh. It's volume 1, and it goes all the way to volume 7, and she's written other books as well, I think. That appears to be the case. And she doesn't like Paul. That's very interesting, because if you read what Paul said, well, what did he write? Okay, so, he was a Pharisee. Jesus appeared to him. Apparently. I mean, this is the other thing as well, right? So, that's what he wrote. Okay, that's what he said. Did that happen? Or did it, what actually happened and what didn't happen? And anyway, if you actually read his words, he talks about, the way he writes about himself, he seems very sort of, he feels like he's gained his crown of righteousness and, all these things. He's very sure of himself, if you know what I'm saying. He knows, he thinks that, he's got it in the bag. He's got it, he's got his crown of righteousness. He, and the way he wrote his words, yeah. Well, look, the thing is that he isn't that guy. The Paul now is a guy called Patrick. What a fitting name, huh? Patrick. Yeah. I mean, he is the perfect example of a sinner. He's the total opposite of what he should be. He stole from me. He stole stuff from me. He's evil. The only reason he ever wanted to be friends with me was because he wanted to steal my DJ equipment from me. And that was it. And someone he could do drugs with. And drink with. When he ran out of money, he would come round to my place, where I used to live in Brighton. He would come round to visit me, see if I got any beers in the fridge. Yeah. Or if I had anything to smoke. We'd sit and we'd play computer games or watch a movie or whatever, right? And talk shit. Yeah, that's Paul. Appalling Paul. So, what else can I say? What he wrote, and that's the thing. So it's interesting because the group who call themselves the Church of Almighty God, they see Paul as this guy who was, he was popular. He was a guy he was trying to make a name for himself. And if you think about it, that's kind of true. If you kind of think about it, I mean, a lot of people think that Paul was responsible for spreading the gospel, and people say all kinds of stuff like that about Paul. They seem to give him the credit rather than God. Yeah? Me. So, this is another thing I would like to talk about as well, because, if you read, I mean, this is the thing, because, when I read the Bible, when I read the scriptures, I think, when I read the words the words of Jesus, I read those and I think, okay, those are the most important words to focus on. Those are the most important words. Everyone else's words are less important because, well, that's true. That's how it is. Obviously we're talking about the New Testament. I'm talking about the New Testament. Okay. Obviously the Old Testament, when God spoke, well, God's words are important as well. Obviously the most important. God, Jesus. Okay? So Jesus' words, very important. The most important. Okay? And when I read different things, for instance, the book of Revelation, for instance, there's somebody who apparently, people attribute that book. They say that the author of that book was John. It says that his name is John. They don't know which John, but in my King James Version Bible, it says Saint John the Divine. So where does that title come from? And the other thing is, if these people, they have visions. They have a vision. They have a vision. They might say that they've seen Jesus, and Jesus said this, that, and the rest. So that's the problem, right? Because that's the thing, right? What if you have a vision? What if you went to sleep, right, and you had a dream about Jesus saying something to you? Where did that come from? What is that about? How do you know that what's being, how do you know? How do you know exactly? People who, so if when Paul said that Jesus, appeared to him in a vision, is that exactly what happened? How would you know? So all I'm saying is that don't you have to question it. You have to know that it's, how would you know? Well, you have to investigate that. That's important. Because the thing is that I know demons will try to do that kind of thing as well. Demons will try to appear as if they're Jesus Christ as well to people. To try and say, hey, I'm Jesus. Hey, I say this and I say that. If you don't think that demons are, would try to do something like that, well, you're wrong. How do I know that? Well, I guess I've had my own personal experiences with demons that would rather that I didn't believe that that I'm God. They would rather me not know that I'm God. Demons trying to drive me totally insane. Yeah. So is there really much more I can say for this video? I don't know. So what is Palm Sunday? So Palm Sunday is when Jesus, he made his entrance into Jerusalem. And people were waving their palm branches while Jesus rode in on a donkey. Yeah. So, there's another thing as well, isn't there? The saying, hung like a donkey. Well, Jesus was hung on a cross. And he rode on a donkey. Yeah, hung like a donkey. Strange, that expression, isn't it? So, Palm Sunday says it marks the beginning of Holy Week and is celebrated with the blessing and distribution of palm branches, symbolizing the palms that the crowd waved to honor Jesus as he entered the city. Pal. You know what pal means? Pal means friend. Or maybe you might say palm. Yeah, look, it's really boring having to explain this. It really is. How many times have I already mentioned it? I don't know. But I'll mention it again. So what do you know, how do you know? I mean, this is the thing, people call the death of Jesus, right? So Jesus was nailed to the cross. The crucifixion. You know what a screw is, right? Screw? Crew? Crucifixion? Screwcifixion? You know what it is to screw, don't you? You have nails and you have screws. Yeah. Except screw sounds more like crucifixion, doesn't it? Crucifixion. Screwcifixion. Anyways. Strange that, isn't it? I mean, this is the thing. People want to try to make... See, the demons, they want to try to make, the death of Jesus, they want to call it Easter. So, some pagan goddess. Yeah, Eostri. Easter. Make it about... it's all about... It's worshipping, or it's a feminine worship thing. And then there's Paul, yeah, Palm Sunday. Take your pick. This is what the world does to me. The world wants to try to make it about everyone else except me. They try to use people like Paul, or pagan deities, or people like Abraham or King David, or various people to try to steal my light. They'll say, "Oh, King David's great," I mean, what was it? There was a video I found on YouTube, and the guy was suggesting that when Jesus returns, he will return as King David. Imagine my shock. Imagine my shock at that one. King David, the liar boy. He used to play the lyre. Yeah. While he would tell God he loves him, he would play the lyre. Yeah. The instrument's called a lyre. What's a lyre? So, King David, so someone wants to suggest that when Jesus returns, he's going to return as King David. How the fuck does that make any sense? When I said about David, I said that, David, he was a man after God's own heart. Well, the fact is that King David, he wants to be God. That's the problem. I think he was Adam. Was he Adam? Yeah, he was Adam. So King David was actually Adam. And he's my cousin, Andrew Neil. He would probably wipe his arse with the Bible before reading it. That's how interested he is in the Bible, in Scripture. That's how interested he is. In fact, his brother wiped his arse with the Bible once. Yeah. When he was at school. I remember him telling me when he was a kid. I mean, obviously he was a kid, but still, I'm just telling you that's what they're like. That's how they think. They don't believe that God exists. But in their minds, they behave as if they are God. They think they're in control. They think they can do what they want. They think they're in charge. They think they are the master of their destiny, of their own destiny. Yeah, they think they are important. Therefore, they behave like they are God. Their actions and their words show it. I mean, there's a lot I could say about that. Yeah. Anyway. Yeah, look. What's that? Palm. Yeah, I got. This is the palm on my right hand. And this is the palm on my left hand. Palm Sunday. Or palms. I got 2 palms. Yeah, 2 palms. Yeah, great, huh? I mean, it's crazy, isn't it? So God created the world in 6 days and rested on the 7th day. Jesus said, I am the light of the world. And so, God, so on the 7th day, what's the 7th day of the week? It's called Sunday. Okay, I mean, that's the thing. Every single day, well, every day, if there's no sun, there's no day, is there? Sunda. Sunda? Who's da? Sunday. So Sunday. So God's supposed to rest on Sunday, is he? So 6 days of the week are total darkness. And then you have Sunday. Is that what we're talking about? Is that how it's supposed to be? So you want to put God, you want to say that God is the darkness for 6 days out of the week. And on Sunday, that's Sunday. And then it's, Paul Sunday and Easter Sunday. Yeah, there's Remembrance Sunday. There's, what other Sundays are there? Yeah. Yeah, and then there's bank holy days. Yeah. Your bank. Is your bank holy? Is it? When you go to the bank, you think, oh, well, what a holy bank this is. Better change my money. See if I can get some currency exchanged at the holy bank. Put your money in a savings account and get a bit of usury or whatever, right? Get your credit cards. Blah de blah. I know that my videos are very random and all over the place, but I give you lots of examples so you can see in everyday life. You can go around and you can look at everything and you can see it everywhere. You can see what I'm telling you is observable everywhere. So that your eyes open so you can see it for yourself everywhere. You don't need me to give you any more examples. You should see it all for yourself. Anyway, yeah. So next weekend it's a 4-day bank holiday. Yeah. Um, I'm four eyes. I've got my four eyes. There's the Matthew, Mark, Luke, John. Four eyes, yeah. Four. I am. Yeah, four eyes. Or is it faux rise? Faux rise? If you understand, where are you? Are you sinking? Are you sin king? That's the thing, right? See king the truth. Yeah, you see a king? Is that the truth? When you look at King Charles, do you think, yep, there's the truth? See king the truth. Yeah. King Charles the Third. Hope that guy dies soon. I'm tired of waiting. Yeah. It's fascinating because I had to get the paperwork done for this house just to put it in my name. And my aunt, Christine Neal, very interesting name, yeah? Christine Neal. She arranged to have a notary do the paperwork. And I think she was Eastern European. And her name is Patricia. Well, it's like the Polish version of Patricia. Yeah. Patrick. Well, my ex-girlfriend was called Ania. She was from Poland. And I'm under the impression that she had sex with Patrick after we separated. That would seem to be the case. That's what I'm told. That's what Moses tells me. So, that appears to be the way it is. The 6th Sunday of Lent. Well, I'll tell you what, I lent quite a few things to Patrick, actually. Yeah, DJ equipment. I gave him a computer monitor. What else? DVDs, vinyl, music, all kinds of stuff that he stole from me. Okay? He didn't return it to me. He kept it. He held on to it. And a lot of the time when I asked for my stuff back, he made it extremely difficult. A lot of the time I'd lend him money. And when I asked for it back, he would argue with me about it. He would accuse me of trying to embarrass him in front of his friends. Yeah, that's Paul. That's Paul. Appalling Paul. And people want to worship Paul and say, he's a great man. For instance, the pastor, John Piper. He says he has a painting of Paul. Not that he knows what Paul looks like, but he has a very expensive painting, apparently, of Paul. That's supposed to be of Paul. And every day, when he wakes up, he goes and he stands in front of that painting and he says a prayer, or he says he has things he likes to say to his painting of Paul. I mean, how obvious does it have to be that he worships Paul? It's very obvious to me. You know, every time, like, you listen to John Piper's videos, at least half of his videos, he mentions Paul. He's always mentioning Paul. Paul was like this, Paul was this, Paul was that, Paul was amazing, blah, 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 blah. No. No. I mean, he endured a lot of hardship. Yeah, I mean, he got whipped and he was put in prison like many times and blah blah blah. But that doesn't mean that he loves me. It doesn't mean that he loves God. Some people are obsessed with power. Some people, you know, they're corrupted. If there was any good in Paul back then, well, there ain't any now. I'll tell you that much. So, I mean, that's the thing, you know. People who say they're part of the church, you know, people who are considered leaders, you know, they like to steal the spotlight. There are people out there who, you know, once they get into it, you know, they lead a church or they lead a large group of people. You know, they put themselves first. They don't put God first. They're putting themselves first. And I'm telling you, that's the kind of person that Paul is. That's who he is. I mean, perhaps, you know, he accomplished, you know, I'm good. I used Paul to accomplish something. Yeah, I got him to spread the gospel. Yeah, I got him to do various things. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. I'm God. I can use my enemies to do stuff. Can I not do that? If I want my enemies to help further, you know, help me. Do you know what I mean? I can make them do all kinds of stuff. Right? Well, it's the truth. It's the truth. You know, I've been used by evil people many times. Evil people, there are lots of evil people in this world who try to use God for their own selfish reasons. I'm saying I'm God, I can do that to them as well. I'm perfectly capable of doing that. So yeah. So why, you know, this is the weird thing, right? Because, you know, if you look at the world worships all these different people they call idols, you know, and they're degenerate, and a lot of people would consider them to be degenerate, and their behavior is that what they would classify as degenerate. It's strange what the world worships, isn't it? But that's the thing, right? If I'm God and I behaved in a similar way to that, in a similar way to the people that you would consider to be degenerate, does that actually make me degenerate, or does it not? I mean, the fact is, if I created the universe, and I created you, and I created everything, well, how could I then be degenerate? Do you understand? I'm capable of doing what I want to do. I will do whatever it is I choose to do. Really that simple. I gave people an example to follow, so that if they wanted to go to heaven, if they wanted to be with me in heaven, and have a nice existence in heaven, then you're going to have to follow the example I gave you with Jesus Christ. Which means, you have to be able to say no to degenerate stuff. You have to be able to say, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to be good. I'm going to love God. I'm going to put God first. I'm going to love my brothers and sisters in Christ. I'm going to lay up my treasures in heaven. Yeah? See, it's only when you can say, if you can say no to something, if you have self-control, then, do you know what I mean? That's the thing. If you can let go of something, you see, this is the thing, the world is controlled by their desires, right? So the world is controlled by their desires for money, power, sex, fame, status, all that stuff, right? If you can say no to all of that, you're not controlled by it. And if you're not controlled by it, well, then you can be trusted to have some of that. Do you understand? Like, why would I want to give people those sort of things if it meant that they were totally controlled by that thing, and they couldn't, they would put that first instead of me, God. Do you understand? So, when, those who I love and those who love me, I said that they would be rewarded. How will they be rewarded exactly? Well, they'll find out. But the fact is that, I would reward them. I'd want to reward them with things I think they deserve. And I think, and that's the thing. I want the people who are evil, I don't want them, obviously. Those people, I would like to see them suffer. And I'd like them to understand, I would like them to feel bitter. And I would like them to hate themselves for I mean, that's the thing, right? The world wants to put itself first and its desires first instead of God. But then, the things that they love and enjoy, well, I can give that to people who love me. Yeah, I can give those people, I can give what I want to give to people, right? So I can reward people. I would like to see, you know what I mean? Think of it that way. Do you not understand what I'm saying? Is it hard to understand? I want to take the head, I want to take the face of the world, and I want to rub its face in shit is what I want to do. That's what I want to do. I want to rub shit in the face of the world for my own satisfaction. Does that make sense? I think it does. Anyway, I think that's long enough for this video.